Hello and welcome back to the Money Mindset Hub podcast. I'm your host, Carla Townsend, a money mindset and success coach who helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs dissolve their money blocks. So today is a little bit different. This is actually the replay of an episode that I was the guest on. So I had the privilege of going on the Habit Nerd podcast with the incredible Dr. Bree Hurn that you may recognize from last week's episode 140, where I actually had Bree come on and we spoke all things habits, success, money, mindset, all of it. So if you haven't checked out episode 140, please go back and listen to that. It's linked in the show notes. Now you'll get to hear this incredible conversation that I had with her because I think it's just invaluable and I know that you will enjoy it. So let's dive into the conversation.
Hi there, Habit Nerds. A very big thank you and a warm welcome to our episode today. I am delighted and thrilled to be joined by our expert, who is Carla Townsend. Carla is a money mindset and success coach. She helps purpose-driven women in business dissolve their money blocks, charge what they are worth, and create an iconic life. Carla initially started her business back in 2019 as a modern money coach for mums. But after 12 months, she realized something was off. Something just was missing, even though her clients were getting really incredible results. Carla then decided to have a 10-month break from business where she had her third child. And then she relaunched Money Mindset Hub to what it is today. In June 2021, with, can you believe this, a newborn baby, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old in tow. Since then, Carla has supported hundreds of women on their entrepreneurial journey, from startup through to 50,000 plus months, being featured in magazines. And Carla's podcast has reached, and this is super impressive, 122 countries worldwide, and she has never felt more on purpose. So, Carla, I am so excited to have you today. This podcast is dancing in the realm of habits predominantly, but habits really do come to life when mindset is interjected into the habits. Now, your work on money and money mindset is a beautiful synergy and a great area of expertise for us to dive into, because I would like my listeners to be empowered by your message around the habits for money mindset that really do make the difference. So a huge welcome and a big thank you, Carla.
Thank you so much for having me, Bree. I can't wait to get into this conversation.
So let's dive in. What is a habit of yours that you are most proud of?
Okay, so when I was thinking about this, there was actually a few that really come to mind, but I think the biggest one that I want to start off with is I have managed to train my brain to be delusionally optimistic. So to the point that I just trust that everything is going to come together no matter what happens. It's this mantra that I live by, that it's all coming together. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always like that. This is the thing when it does come to habits and training your brain, is that you have to start to think of, what is my North Star and where am I going and what sort of woman do I want to be? What sort of mother do I want to be? What sort of business owner do I want to be? And then it just started to realize that everything that seemingly went wrong, right, always led to this beauty at the end of it. So then I really started to form that belief that it's all coming together. So the habits that I do week on week, and they are a non-negotiable for me, is I go to the gym. I train 3 to 4 days per week. I eat well, I sleep well, I rest, I make sure I have that quality time with my kids and my husband as well. Being present, as you know, busy mums, it can be really hard when you have so many hats that you're wearing, but really trying to switch off and be present with my kids has just been absolutely game-changing in my life, and also as to who I've become. Mm-hmm. So another one too would be always challenging myself to get out of my comfort zone. And I think, honestly, it's seemingly those small efforts, those small habits that really compound over time. And I believe, this is my belief, that the way you are off the field, so in your personal life, it's going to directly impact the way that you show up in your business and also in your career. Let's say you don't have a business, but let's say it's more so your career. But it's going to show up because I call them energy leaks. If there is something that is leaking your energy and it's in your personal life, maybe your habits haven't been as great. Maybe you haven't been looking after your body as well. You haven't been getting enough rest. It's going to then show up in the way that you are creative, in the way that you just get stuff done, in the way that you stop the procrastination and you just continue to move on. Lastly, I think the most important one has been allowing it to be done instead of perfect. So I am a recovering perfectionist, but it was perfectionism wrapped up in procrastination. And procrastination equals no momentum. So I believe once you start to do the hard things, they are not seemingly hard anymore. They all get easier. And I do believe that that also is a big belief. Another habit is honestly just evolving your beliefs that I can do hard things. You know, I say to my kids all the time, we actually have a rule in our house that they are not allowed to say the word can't. I can't do that. I can't do this. We just say, nope, we don't say that word because you can. You just don't know yet. Haven't yet. So yeah, they would probably be the top ones that really come to mind that have just made a profound impact on my life. And honestly, yeah, we've taught the kids that as well. They come to the gym with us. We explain everything to the kids, why we do what we do. And we're always trying to give them a lot more context. But yeah, I think those ones are probably the ones that come to mind the most.
Wow. Thank you, Carla. You know, huge resonance for me, and I know my audience in all of those. I think the first point you made, well, obviously that it's all coming together is just there's a sense of trust there. And I think that does relate to that idea of getting out of your comfort zone, because getting out of your comfort zone means to trust that, yes, this feels hard. As you say, yes, this feels tricky. This is above where I'm operating at the moment. This is kind of an expanding me. Doesn't feel particularly comfortable, but if you have that sense of trust that it is all coming together in the end somehow, then I can really see how helpful that mindset is. I think the other one about those foundational health habits, the sleep, the nutrition for performance, staying hydrated, and obviously modeling that to your kids and being able to articulate what that means, there's huge power in that, because exactly as you've said, how you do some things is how you do everything. So if you say there's a leak somewhere, then that leak will kind of permeate across your life. I heard this said this week and it made me laugh, but it is so true. Kris Jenner, the Kardashian matriarch, I don't know if you heard this in the news. It was just a little thing that really, it made me laugh because I thought that's so true. She said when she hires staff, she wishes that she could look in their car, because she said anyone that she knows who's got a messy car, who's got papers everywhere, who's got yesterday's outfit thrown at the bottom of the passenger seat, there's food all over the back, there's empty coffee cups, whatever it is, that lack of care and organization to somebody's car really does permeate to lack of care and organization in their home, in their business, in the way that they operate and show up. And I just thought, wow, I've heard that said around making your bed as well. Make your bed, and people who make their bed have a better day. And it's such a simple thing. But for me, it's about if you have enough care to wake up early enough and enough pride in your bedroom so that you can make your bed, then you will close loops at work. Like, you will follow the plan and you'll execute as best as you can. And the last thing I want to pick up on is just how important that done instead of perfect is, which really does, it's a problematic mindset to be perfectionist, because as you've said, it is, and it takes us a long time to get this, particularly as high-performing women who have, you know, gained from perfectionism. Let's be honest, when we've worked really hard and we've put the reps in, success is often the outcome. So we do set ourselves up there a little bit, but it doesn't, being perfect is actually a way of hiding, isn't it? It's actually a way of standing in your own way.
I mean, what is perfect?
Exactly. The subjectivity is really problematic. So yeah, I love it. Thank you for those super helpful habits. Thanks for giving them the pre-thought too, because you gave us a few, and I think, you know, those habits could frame the whole episode, but we are here to talk more about money mindset, Carla. So I would love to dive into my next question, which is, how can we create habits or systems to become magnetic to money?
Okay, so I love this question because there are quite a few, but there was 3 that really stood out to me when I thought, what's going to really drive this home and this magnetism around money? Because at the end of the day, everybody wants more money. Now, whether they will admit to it or not is a different thing. But when I think about becoming magnetic to money and the habits, The first one that comes to mind, the very first thing that I started to do was flipping the script, and that's internally. So what I mean by that is, what is your internal dialogue when it comes to money? What is your internal dialogue when it comes to wealth and rich and people who are rich or people who are poorer, right? What is your actual internal dialogue, especially around you? So whenever there's something that, say, triggers you, now we're in a whole world of social media because social media it's a great tool. Don't get me wrong. It's great. However, it can also be quite triggering. So one of the things that I love to explain is when you're flipping the script, if there is something that triggers you, maybe you've seen something, flip that, because normally what comes to mind is a thought that doesn't serve you. And it's this internal dialogue that's not serving you. You might see someone really killing it in their business, really killing it in their industry. And you might think, well, that could never be me. That's easy for them. Well, all these things come up and that's so normal. However, that is never going to serve you. So can you flip that story? Flip every single one into a more positive, more empowering thought for you personally. Because the more that you do that, the more that it just becomes your natural way of operating. And you don't even think about it anymore. If something triggers you or a negative thought pops in, you instantly reframe it in the moment. And again, I think you and I both know that repetition is a way to change those neural pathways within your brain. So then it just becomes your automatic. And that's how you begin to build this delusionally optimistic mindset, right? This abundant mindset, I like to call it. Because when it comes to money, money is so subjective and it has this emotional attachment, which we all have a different emotional attachment to money. But we need to be able to start to flip that. And we'll obviously talk about scarcity soon. But we need to start to flip those stories to become a more abundant thought, one that is empowering, because that then becomes the roots of your beliefs. And you will act according to your beliefs, whether you realize it or not. There are always going to be these really deep-rooted ones, and I like to call them money blocks or money myths, to be honest, because most of them, there's no truth to them. They're just something that you have thought repetitively and it then has become your belief until you begin to flip the script. So my second one would be look at your money. Now, I know it sounds so simple, but yet it is one that is really hard to do, because when you sit in avoidance and you're avoiding a problem, you're avoiding your bank account because it makes you feel a certain way, you need to become comfortable with actually looking at your money. And you need to be able to become comfortable also with the flow of money, whether it is flowing in and whether it is flowing out. So something that I started to do years ago was I would appreciate the money no matter where it was coming or going. So what I mean by that is, it's very easy to be thankful when money comes in and you're like, oh, great. I've earned this money, I've got this income, I've sold this item and all of that. But what is really hard is looking at your bills in an abundant way. So one habit straight away that everyone can do is start to look at the money that's actually flowing out and be grateful for it. Thank it. For example, when you pay your electricity bill, thank you, because I get to keep the lights on in my house. Thank you to the gas bill. I get to keep my family warm in the winter. Thank you for my grocery bill, because I get to put food on the table for my family. And in this time, I suppose, that we're in with the cost of living, it can be a challenging one, but I really want everyone to just appreciate the flow out as well, because once you start to do that, you begin to neutralize money. And that, at the end of the day, is the goal. It's to neutralize the way that you feel about money so that you can get to the point where you are looking at your bank account, you're seeing what's coming in, you're seeing what's going out, and you feel the same about it. You feel neutral. It doesn't make you feel scarcity. It doesn't make you constrict, right? Because that's often the feeling that we get initially, until you start to just program your brain to look at it in a different way. And if you started to look at it in a different way, what would then happen in your life? You probably open yourself up to more opportunities, more abundance, more receivership in so many different ways. Not just money, but also receiving compliments can be really hard. So you start to flip that script, you build that abundant mindset in not just your money story, but also in every part of your life, which makes everything easier. The third most important one is create a money plan. Now, I like to call it a money plan, not a budget, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you think about the big corporations, so I used to work in corporate and, we're working with multi-million-dollar deals and things. they all had a money plan, right? And you need to know what's coming in and what's going out. And it used to shock me. Now I understand it, because for me, I often talk about money archetypes. So I do have a money mindset archetype quiz for everyone. And it really explains what your archetype is, what's your behaviors, what are your strengths, what are your challenges when it comes to money. So everyone can go do that quiz. It's just on my website, moneymindset.hub.com/quiz. Go and do that and start to realize, where do I need to strengthen that? So going back to the money plan, set your money plan, know what's coming in, know what's going out, and make it so easy. I am automation queen because, lots of hats, lots of things to do, minimal time. So make it so easy. So everything is always paid. Your bills are paid. You are investing, you're saving, you're paying down debt. You are doing all of it all at the same time, which, another little thing here, I believe that you can do all of that at the same time.
Mhm.
I don't believe you need to just focus on saving or just focus on debt. I believe you can do all of it at the same time. And then that way you're actually able to stay on track without manually having to find the time. Because if you manually have to find the time, sometimes there will be reasons or excuses that you just won't do it. And then you've got to start next week. So to be able to get out of that week-to-week cycle, which is where most people struggle, is make it so easy for yourself. You create it once and then it's done. Something too that comes up, and I notice this is just a reoccurring theme, and I do think it's the way that we've just been conditioned, especially through school and through our work and all of that. But most people think that you have to work really, really hard for money. I have to work harder. I have to work more. I have to hustle harder. So normally the systems that we put in place are about doing more. But in actual fact, this is something that came to me one day. I don't know whether I heard this somewhere, but I remember hearing or reading or something that if working hard meant financial wealth, then the working class would be the wealthiest.
That's right.
But they're not. They're the ones that work the most amount of hours, but it doesn't equate to their bank accounts. Now, maybe that's not in every situation, right? There's always outliers. There's always people like that. But I do think that people love to overcomplicate the process, especially when it comes to money and building a plan and paying down their debt, all of that. We love to overcomplicate it. But there's always a more efficient way. And just be really aware of your money blocks, your beliefs, these myths that you have around money that are really just popping up for you and showing up, because they're going to show up in your behaviors and your patterns as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good reframe, because I know that, we were all conditioned until we start to learn. It's not about working harder and harder. And yes, there is hard work. I'm not saying that hard work's not necessity, especially when you're trying to build something worth remembering, right? But there is always an easier way. So I challenge everyone to ask yourself, is there an easier way? Is there a more efficient way? Can I set up a system where I do it once and it's done, like when it comes to your money?
Yeah. Wow. Automation queen. Okay. So you said a lot. I can see why you are so very valuable in this work, Carla. The first feedback I want to give you around how helpful that was you're talking mindset. So you're talking, almost the 5D less tangible aspects around mindset, but then you're very pragmatic and practical about things like bringing your money out into the light, like not hiding from it, and money plans and what's coming in and what's going out. So I think whenever, I've got a real interest in money and in money mindset. And I think whenever I'm turned off, it's because the person that I'm listening to or reading about has one or the other and not both. So I'm really enlightened to hear you speak about, the importance of neutrality and energy as money as energy, for example, but that's not enough if you don't have the numbers in front of you and you don't have the hard and fast facts that we can't deny about what we're spending on certain things and where potential leaks are. So I want to really thank you for that, and thank you on behalf of our audience, because that's hugely helpful to understand both sides of that coin. It's such an important reminder for me, as I've just received a really big electricity bill, about thanking, the electricity company for sending that to me, because I'm sure Kate Northrup. I've heard her call this, invoices for blessings already received. And I think that's really helpful. So I need to remember that I've been warm, I've had electricity, my family have, been able to have the lights on and be able to, function with comfort because of the electricity. So that invoice is for blessings that I've already received in the same way as, I would invoice somebody for hopefully what I'm giving them as blessings already received. I just asked one question from your first point around what we see on social media and how it can be a trigger. Could you give us an example, Carla, about somebody who's, because I find huge resonance in that, and I must admit, sometimes I disappoint myself when I do see something and I feel that feeling of almost resentment and then anger at myself that perhaps I don't have what that person has or whatever. Can you help us with an example of how that might look for someone and a reframe that might be helpful? Because I feel like that's something really common.
So when it comes to social media, I think something that I've noticed a pattern, and probably everybody has, but there's a big pattern of, let's say in the money space or in the business space, I've hit this amount of dollar months, the biggest month ever, the biggest launch, all of these things. So we feel like you need to be keeping up with them. But I think the biggest reframe that you can have when you do see that, first of all, if it does trigger you a little bit, is there a reason why you haven't got to that point yet? One, it shows you what you want. If something triggers you, so let's say you do say someone says they earned 50K months. If that's triggering in any way, one, thank it, because it's actually showing you what you want.
Right. So it's information for you.
It is 100%. It is showing you what you want. But two, maybe you need to actually look inwards and go, you know what, is that actually serving me? If it's making me fall into lack and scarcity, do I need to set some boundaries there? Do I need to maybe just mute for a little while? Do I need to stop the scroll? I barely am on social media. I mean, I am. I obviously have a platform and things like that, but I do not spend time scrolling and seeing what everyone else is doing. I try to stay in my own lane. And I think too, remember that where you're at is where you're at in your journey. And your journey compared to somebody else's is going to be totally different things. You could be comparing yourself to, let's say you're at chapter 1. You're just beginning. And that's someone's chapter 50. They've been in the game a really long time and they have so much set up. So of course they're there, but it also shows you that it's possible. So one, a trigger shows you what you want. Two, it's also an expansion to see that is actually possible. And maybe you didn't know it was. I remember years ago, it used to trigger me when I would see $50,000 months, $100,000 months, and I would think, how is that even possible?
Yes.
But then I started to realize, no, it's actually showing me what is possible. But again, I'm here and I'm on my own journey and this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So just remember that too. It's exactly where you're supposed to be right now, but this is an opportunity for you to look at it in a different light. It's an opportunity for you to go, well, maybe that is what I want. And then what do I need to shift internally to be able to get there? But yeah, I do think boundaries are really important when it comes to social media because there is a lot of noise and of course it is a highlight reel and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But probably just make sure that you're actually curating your feed to be what is empowering for you. And if it is triggering, you probably need to mute there for a little while just until you build that stability within yourself as well.
Are you smart, capable, and secretly exhausted? You are not alone. If you're a woman who's done everything right but still feels like you're running on empty, it's time to stop surviving and to start choosing. I'm Bree, the habit nerd. I coach women who are done with hustle culture and don't need another planner. They need a better way to work and to live. As an academic at Australia's #1 university, I bring trusted, research-backed tools to your real everyday challenges. As a busy mum myself, my 4-part coaching system matches proven science to your point of need, so you can create habits that last and invest your time and energy where it matters most. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing what is right for you. I will help you feel proud of how you show up at work and at home, for yourself and for the people that you love. If you're ready to feel focused, fulfilled, and in control without burning out, let's talk. head over to the Habit Nerd on Instagram, where you'll find my calendar. Book a meeting and let's get a conversation started. Oh, I'm so glad I asked you to unpack that, because all of those things you just said are so helpful in different ways. And I really respect, you just said at the end it is a highlight reel. And I have heard somebody else say that if somebody looks like they've got it all together with regard to their finances, for example, there is a chance that it's being held up by duct tape behind the scenes. And that is one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is maybe it's not being held up by duct tape. Maybe they are really, really high performing. And if I'm feeling inadequate or regretful about that, that is, I could do two things. I could mute it for my own kind of self-esteem and self-efficacy and mental health, which is a really helpful suggestion and definitely something that 50% of the time I would do. But the other 50%, I just really want to honor what you've said about being grateful for people showing what is possible out there.
Yeah.
Because if somebody else can do it, then I can do it in some lifetime, in some capacity. But it does really go back to your first habit, and that is that idea that it's all coming together. So the timeline needs to be right for me. And if I am, I don't think delusional is even accurate there. I think it is just a matter of trusting and taking your hands off the wheel a little bit and understanding that all in good time if you're kind of putting in the repetition and doing the work and showing up. So yeah, this has been hugely helpful, Carla, so far.
And I just want to add one thing there. Sorry
please.
to interrupt.
No, please go.
I love that you brought that up because, basically that assumption there or what you've heard there is it's kind of discrediting somebody's success. Now, yes, I've heard of stories where people have put up, income claims and things that are not truthful and they're not giving you the whole story. But remember, it's social media. So you take what you want from it and you have to take things with a grain of salt. However, just be really mindful if you do see those opportunities of expansion, right? Those income levels and anything that you see. But just remember, we don't want to fall into, well, that's probably not true. That's probably, bending the truth. They probably didn't even make that. Because if you do have thoughts like that, I, again, give you the opportunity to flip that script and say, well, maybe that is true. And I don't want to discredit their success because I actually don't know how long they've been doing this. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes because what you see on social media is just the tiniest little smidge of their story. Often in entrepreneurship, there are so many unseen hours. So what you do see is, of course, the highlight reel. Not always, but sometimes. And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, you've got to remember that you're not seeing the times in their journey where they felt like it wasn't working. They had their lowest months. Things were all falling apart. When they are upset and questioning their ability to even continue, you're only seeing a tiny little portion of their success, but you're not seeing all the other stuff because they don't need to share all of that. But it is a part of the journey too. It can be up and down. It can be a bit of a roller coaster, and that's fine. Everyone's story is different. So I think it's really good that you reflected on that because it can be triggering for people. And I always see if people are discrediting somebody else's success, it's probably just a part of their shadow that they need to integrate a bit more and go a bit deeper with. And I think that, you should just look at it more of an opportunity. It's an opportunity. It's showing you what's possible, but try not to discredit their success in any way because there's so much unseen that you'll never know about.
I completely agree with that. And also, it feels much better in my body if I say, wow, that person's done incredibly well. Like they should be really proud of the work that they've put in. That is amazing. Rather than, who does that person think they are? That doesn't feel good in me when I have that thought anyway. So it is much more self-compassion and self-kindness to be able to get to a place to say, that person's handbag is amazing. I love that handbag. That looks beautiful on them. Maybe one day I'll have that handbag too. Not why do they have that and I don't have that? That's
Yeah.
probably rented. This is a much less helpful story. So, and afterwards, it's a yucky sense of regret if I have those thoughts. So, yeah, I'm so glad, as I say, I asked you to elaborate because it was amazing. And then the additions you've added, even with more depth, and the examples are really helpful. Okay, Carla, your work talks about the importance of moving beyond this scarcity mindset, as well as other aspects of our life. So if we are scarce when we look at money, that bleeds into scarcity in other aspects of our life. That's your message. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so it's a big one to unpack. So where I sort of want to start first of all is when we think about scarcity, my advice for anybody who they know that they get that feeling, there's certain things that trigger that feeling within them. My advice for anyone trying to shift out of scarcity is to first of all, get really brutally honest with yourself. Your behaviors with money, your attitudes towards those who possess more or less of it than you. And once you start to take complete ownership of your money story being your problem to solve, it's nobody else's. No one's going to come and save you. That's when you're actually committed to change. So we can't change what we don't accept and what we're not aware of. So you've got to be able to bring that awareness first and then accept, okay, I am in control of changing this. Because I think a really good example is just to remember that your current reality right now for everyone listening is based off your past decisions and behaviors or lack thereof. So if you don't like it, if you don't like where you are right now, or maybe where you're at in your business, you get to decide and choose again. And that is so empowering to know that. So I also think it's really important to ask yourself, when you're feeling scarcity, what is that actually protecting you from? Now, this could be a totally different lens, but what is feeling protecting you from? Because scarcity is essentially not feeling enough or that it's going to run out. So that could be linked to your money. It could be linked to opportunities. It could be linked to feeling that there aren't enough clients or assuming what people can and can't afford. But what is that feeling protecting you from? Because it will show up in your behaviors. Your behaviors, one we spoke about was procrastination. If you feel scarcity, it is very challenging to still move regardless. You might procrastinate, you might stall, you might retreat, you might hide. And then what is that hiding then protecting you from? Right? So I just want you to remember that no one is going to care as much about you, your life, your progress, what you do than what you will. Right? So you can't forget your North Star and what you're working towards, and don't allow other people to sway you. I honestly think whenever that feeling comes up, start to look into your shadows, start to look into it. If I'm feeling scarcity, what is it about this situation that I'm feeling scarcity about? What am I worried about? But then what are my behaviors when I feel like that? Because my behaviors are trying to keep me protected. Okay. So it's going to stop you in your tracks. But I think the best lesson here is for everyone to listen to your body, your gut, your intuition, and not your mind. Because as much as it is a beautiful tool, it will always try to protect you and keep you in the safe and familiar, even when it doesn't serve you. So again, recap, when you're feeling scarcity, what is it about the situation that's causing you to feel that? But 2, what are your behaviors? What are your patterns when you feel like that? What do you do? Do you retreat? Do you hide? Do you procrastinate? And what is that behavior protecting you from? That's going to start unraveling it. And then the next piece is, which is easier said than done, is to still move regardless. Acknowledge how you feel. Acknowledge where it comes from. Acknowledge the behaviors, but change the behavior. All right. And then it becomes a habit. And so you start to realize that that scarcity will become less and less and less because you have built that safety, I suppose, safety within yourself, but also you've built that trust in you that it's still not going to stop you. And that's when your thoughts begin to change, your feelings begin to change, and scarcity will become less and less. I hope that makes sense.
It does. So you're sort of talking about proving it to yourself with really small pieces of evidence when you act anyway, so that then you're getting almost that feedback that, okay, you were frightened, you did it, the worst didn't happen. Next time, maybe the worst won't happen. So it's almost about gaining that evidence. Could you, Carla, I've got an example in my own head, but I would like you to help us with an example around scarcity with money specifically and how that process might unfold for somebody.
Yeah. So let's think about one that comes to mind is that it's going to run out.
Yes.
Is it true that it will run out? And what if it did? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen if it actually did? Because I think we've got to remember how resourceful that we really are. And often the worst case scenario in your head is not what happens. Or there's actions and behaviors that you can take that will avoid that from happening. The biggest one is, obviously, like I said, it's just that feeling of it's going to run out. But then what would you do? What are your options? Start to look at, what could I actually do about this? What could I do to prevent this? How could I actually build myself into the person that isn't rattled when I do feel like that? Because the thing is, when we are in that fight or flight mode, we cannot rationally think. So we have to start to build that abundant mindset. We have to start to build that neutrality, because it's going to take away that feeling of feeling scarce, and then it takes over your body.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's about calming your nervous system first. So how can you actually begin to calm your nervous system first so that you're not operating from fight or flight? You're actually operating from a neutral state. When you're operating from a neutral state, you will get those downloads. You will get those feelings of what to do next. And then scarcity isn't the problem. Does that make sense?
It does.
The money
Yes,
isn't
it does.
the problem. It's how you feel about it. And the less that the more that you can take away that feeling, that emotion, that fear that makes you stop in your tracks, you will get the ideas. You will know what to do. Everybody knows what to do. It's just about asking yourself the right questions and calming your nervous system down first. So it really begins with, like what we spoke about at the beginning of this episode. If you can start to build those habits and behaviors around becoming abundant, having that abundant mindset, you will always find the answer. That money will always flow. If you think about it, has it ever really stopped? Has it really ever completely run out? When it started to get low, what did you do? And what was the result? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes really good sense. I'm just thinking about a social media post I've scheduled is something about you can trust the next chapter because you know the author. And it's almost like it's sort of what you're saying, and I'm finding this really personally helpful, I must admit, that whenever there does get a sense of panic and, that almost like you find your breath catching, if we are talking about money, it is really helpful to, first of all, I think that's a great reminder about calming your nervous system. So that could be tapping, it could be a 5-minute meditation, it could be turning off your screen and going out for a walk, it could be journaling, it could be anything that just kind of takes you out of that fight or flight panic sense. Just for the listeners who might need some strategies, it could be putting on your favorite song and just dancing it out. It's just sort of getting out of that panic state. I think that's a really helpful first step. But I think the second step around understanding the neutrality of money is that you can be panicked if there is none, and you could be happy if there is lots, or you could bring it right back to center and understand that you actually do have it when you're in a calmer sense within you to make the decisions to gain more money. And we all have those decisions within our power. And then I wonder, is it a matter of going to look for evidence where that is true? So that, somebody like me who really appreciates the science behind this understands that we need to seek the evidence where we have dug ourselves out of tricky situations in the past, money or not money, or look for those expanders, or look for within ourselves about all of the small things that we could do within our current situation and in our future situation where that abundance is very realistic. Because I think the realism is a really important step here so that your nervous system can actually feel safe around that it is going to be okay. Yeah, that's so helpful.
And another thing here to remember is more money is not going to solve your money problems.
Mm.
And it's what we think, right? Especially when you're feeling scarcity, you think, okay, if I just had more money, then I'd be able to do X, Y, Z. I wouldn't feel like I was going to run out. I could pay all my bills. I could do all these things. But it's like, it's not the money. It is actually the way that you behave with it. It does come down to your habits. When it comes down to your habits around money, it does come around to your mindset around money, because money is a relationship. You have a relationship with it. So a really good reframe is to think, well, what is my relationship with money? For everyone listening, this is actually really good. And maybe you might not have done it before, but if you wrote a letter to money like it was a person, what would that relationship be? How would you feel in that relationship? And then how can you take complete responsibility in your side of that relationship to improve that? Okay, it sounds strange, but it is a relationship. So the thing is, sometimes you can end up in these cycles, right? This cycle of thinking, if I just had more, if I just had more, but then you fall into the, well, it's never enough, right? You could be broke, earning 300K a year, and rich, earning 50K a year. It is what you do with that money. And what you do with that money is based off your beliefs around money, because your beliefs will always dictate your behaviors. Your behaviors will dictate your results. But it always starts at that identity piece around who you are with it. You know,
Oh,
what is
that
it
is
about
so
money that you
powerful.
feel like you need? You know, how are you spending your money? And again, goes back to, you've got to know what's coming in and what's going out. You've got to be the one who's the steward of money, not the one that's waiting for more money to solve your money problems.
Yes, yes. And I suppose with lifestyle creep, we've all got those examples where we have more money, as in our wage is more, and yet we have the same amount sitting in our savings or whatever. And I know certainly I can reflect on myself. I don't think I have any less scarcity now that I earn more than I did when I was in my early 20s, for example, even though I would on the bank statement have more money. It is a really good reflection on more money doesn't mean more calm or more happiness. And I love that I've actually not heard that idea that if you were to write a letter to money. I have heard something similar around if you were to treat money like, say, you're single and you're seeking a partner and you find a man or a woman that you'd like to pursue. If you are going to be panicked around that and send them 50 text messages a day and track their every move, well, that's actually abuse. So if we're doing that with our money and worrying about where it is and sending it messages and why isn't it showing up and where is it, that's that same energy, isn't it? That's that kind of urgency and panic around money, which is our nervous system activated, and it is, scarcity mindset. So yeah, I love that idea. I might actually write my money a letter. This next question, Carla, it's quite similar to some of the ground that we've already covered, but you say that wealthy people embody wealth before they see the dollars in their bank account. It is that identity piece you've already touched on, but for our listeners, how might we achieve this sense of embodiment of wealth before we see the money, before we see the actual numbers and the zeros hit our internet bank?
Yeah, look, I love this question too, because it honestly is the truth. Being able to embody your wealthiest self and your richest self, it always comes back to who you believe that you are, the way that you operate, the trust that you have within yourself, and the faith that you have to be able to continue to move no matter what. Because at the end of the day, you can't control the timeline. So I believe when you're trying to step into that next level, whatever it is, and you're trying to embody, say, your richest self, there is identity work that is required, because your current identity, like we spoke, but your current identity right now is based off your past thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that got your results. So where you're at right now is because of all of that. If there's something you want to change, then you need to change you as a person, because that will always change your results. Change who you are, change your beliefs, that will change your behaviors, that will change your results. So for right now, everyone listening, I want you to ask yourself, well, who are you? Who are you? And if you start with the phrase, I am, fill in the blank. I am what? One of the ones I hear a lot is that I'm not that great with money. I can't save. I live week to week. I'm just not confident enough. I could never do that. What are those statements? And there's no right or wrong. So don't judge yourself, whatever comes up. But would those phrases be different if you had all the money in the world? If you had everything you ever wanted, who would she be? What would the identity of her be? How would she show up? How would she dress? What would she believe? What habits would she have? What actions would she actually take? Because this then shows you the gap between who you are now and who you need to be. And that's when you're able to begin to bridge that gap. And there will be very obvious things. Like, let's say, you're someone who, maybe you sleep in every day. You don't really have a morning routine. You don't really have much structure. You're kind of just winging it. Would the, let's say, millionaire running $1 million company, would she do that? Probably not. There's probably things that everybody can do right now that you should be doing. And I do believe everyone has the answers within them. I do believe everybody knows exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And yes, everyone has seasons. We're human. Most of us would be women. We have hormones. We have children. But there are always things that we can do that we know she wouldn't do. So when it comes to being able to become the woman who can hold it, because that's what I believe it is. Being able to embody your richest self and step into that version is to be able to become the woman who can hold it. Many women are fantastic at creating money, but receiving it and holding it are where it gets a bit shaky. So it's actually not the fear of failure that most women have, that I've noticed, in my opinion. It's actually the fear of success. So what I want you to do for everyone listening is, what is your big goal right now? When it comes to money, what is your big goal? What is it that you're actively working towards? And just sit with that for a minute. There's no right or wrong. Don't judge yourself. Just allow it to be, because what you want, I believe, is truly put on your soul for a reason, is because you're supposed to bring it to fruition. So what is that big goal? Now, the second part to that is ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen if that came true? Because that is where the clues are, right? And I'll give you an example in a second. When you think about what's the worst thing that could happen, allow yourself to write. I would encourage everyone to actually just journal on this, because your pen will continue to write. Logically, you'll think, of course I want more money. Of course I want more success. Of course I want the thriving business. But what is the worst thing that could happen if you do get all that? And just write and write and write until you cannot write anymore, and you will be surprised at what comes up. So say for me, for instance, personally, one of my biggest fears was people treating me differently, questioning my character, other people's expectations, judgments. Again, we have no control over those, but that was my fear. So it would show up in my behaviors. This is what I want, but this is what I'm scared of if that comes true. It's very eye-opening to see. Then you start to ask yourself, okay, well, debunk those. Because one, is it about what other people will think of me? Can you control that? No. If there's anything that comes up in that list that you wrote, if you can control it or do something about it, do it. If you can't, you need to let it go. Now, the ways in which you can let it go, and again, go into that embodying piece, is visualize that woman. Visualize who you are when it all comes to fruition. Are there also plans that you can put in place? Because there might genuinely be things that come up on your list that you're scared of, that you can put a mitigation plan in place to reduce the risk of that actually happening. But the next piece is just, it is rewiring of your internal reality. So I love that you mentioned tapping. Tapping has been my go-to for years. I was very skeptical at the beginning, but it works. Tapping, visualizing, meditating, journaling, asking myself the deep questions, noticing, where is my shadow coming up? Now, your shadow is often linked to your ego. So where is that coming up? Reframing that, setting the boundaries, disengaging in the conversations that are not serving you. A really good one, and probably everyone can relate to this, is the cost of living. Okay? So if you're trying to cultivate an abundant mindset, especially when it comes to money, and you're trying to embody that next level self, would she be having conversations around everything's so expensive? No one can afford it. Probably not. Because if she had all the money that she needed, all the money she desired, everything came to fruition, would she even be engaging in those conversations? And like you touched on earlier, would she be engaging in the conversations around judging other people or discrediting their success? Probably not. So there are always active, practical ways that we can start to debunk that. And the moment we start to change that, it starts to change everything. That's how you bridge that gap and you become that woman. You start to operate and think differently. So I love this conversation because it's so many different perspective shifts, but now you've heard it, you can't unhear it, right? And that already, just from listening to this episode, you've already had a perspective shift. That is you embodying your next level self because you've been open to a different way of thinking that you weren't previously. So even just being here is you taking ownership. Everyone listening is you taking ownership and knowing that you want more. And now you have little nuggets to go, okay, the next time that happens, I'm going to do what they spoke about and I'm going to think like that. I am going to look at my money. I'm not going to play into avoidance. I'm going to write that letter and see what's the real story. I'm going to write down what am I really scared of. I'm going to start to question everything. That is you shifting. And it does take time. I do want to preface there. It does take time to do that. But I will also say it doesn't matter what level of success you have and how much money you are making. You are always going to come up with these little challenges, these little internal battles. But I really want to remind everyone here, a really good way to look at that, any sort of challenging moment in your business, in your career, in your life, any sort of point of resistance where you feel yourself retreating, maybe you feel that scarcity taking over. I want you to look at that like that is just an initiation into your next level of greatness. That is you leveling up. Every time you overcome it, every time you respond, react in a way that you are proud of, that's you leveling up. That is actually you becoming the woman, embodying your richer self. And it gets easier and easier and easier until you're not really actively thinking about it. It just becomes who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Carla, you are such a gem. I am going to set myself an intention for the coming week I know what I want, as in if there's a money figure in my mind, that's very clear for me. What I'm scared of if it came true, I understand, my goodness, even just asking myself that question just makes me feel a little bit sick because I know there's stuff there that's very clear to the surface that I could articulate now. And I know there's stuff underneath that I'm almost not letting bubble up. So I really do respect that practice of journaling because, as you say, your pen will keep going and it will shock you if you give it kind of the opportunity to really dive into what that is. The last point I want to make is, my goodness, that's so powerful, that last point you made about honoring, it's like that new level, new devil. As things get harder or as you achieve more, you will continue to come up against challenges and blocks. The most powerful reframe there is that is what is supposed to happen because it is in those moments that you are literally leveling up. And I just want to credit Danny Kennedy, he's the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, and he has used the analogy, which I find helpful, of a PlayStation game or a Nintendo game, say Mario. There are challenges at every level that you need to meet before you can go to the next one. And they are put there to show that you are ready for the next one. And so there's a reason you can't start that game at the final level. There's a reason you must start at the bottom level and keep leveling up. And it's only when you prove that you're able to do the work and able to overcome those challenges, which are hard because they're supposed to be hard or else everybody would be able to do it. And also his analogy is that's why a lot of people don't finish the game, because people give up along the way. So empowering to think, oh, this is really contracting. This is really yucky. I'm challenged by this. And if we could just go full circle back to that first point you made about everything is coming together. So even when things feel challenging, there is going to be, even if I can't see it at this moment, a lesson where I look back and say, oh, that's why that had to happen, or that's why that challenge was thrown in my path, or that's why that obstacle was there. And I hated it, but I chose not to give up. And, this has been the reward. So
Yeah. And I think something too is that if you do quit, if you quit on your dreams, you quit on your ambitions, you quit on your passions and your desires, then all of this would have been for nothing. And I always remind myself that, because even I sometimes have days, you're human. You're just like, oh, is it working? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? But I love this. I would never not do this. And then again, like you said earlier, look at evidence of, yes, okay, it is working. I still love it just as much as when I started. Things are still going. I'm still getting to work with the most incredible women all around the world. I get to be on podcasts just like yours and obviously have my own too, but it's just so beautiful. So why would I quit? Because then
would I
all
quit?
that
What a
time,
privilege.
that effort, it would all be for nothing. So
Yeah,
for
and
everyone, just
I
don't stop.
don't stop. And I just really want to honor, though, that as women and, if you've got caring responsibilities too, we are kind of gaslit as a society to think that when things get hard and when it appears that maybe our family might suffer from the work, it would feel sensible to stop. I had an experience earlier this week where I was traveling for work and my daughter hurt herself at school. I got the phone call of her crying and I'm getting the updates from her getting her x-rays and whatever. And I said to my husband, can we do this? Can I do this? And you have that moment of shakiness that, is probably the domain of mothers and not fathers, if we're honest. And luckily he said to me, you're being dramatic. It's fine. Because of course, 2 days later, everything looks okay. But I just really do want to honor that we do have these kind of roadblocks where things do get challenging. And of course, we need to be where we need to be and be caring where we need to be caring. But that is such a powerful thing for me to be reminded of, that all of the hard work would be wasted if I did say, oh, this is too hard. Like, you can have the job, you can go and earn the money. I'll be home with the kids for now. They need me, obviously. But what a waste. And that would be really disrespecting them and the time that I've taken away from them to get where I am now. So that's not great messaging for myself or for them either. So I appreciate you saying that, because my goodness, I knew this morning when I was in the shower, I was so excited about this conversation, not just to meet you, Carla, but obviously there is just something around these conversations dropping into my life just at the right time. And I really hope that has been the scenario for the listeners today as well. I know they would have gained multiple nuggets, but maybe there was one that's really going to cut through at the level that they needed to hear it. My goodness, Carla, I have got absolutely no doubt that you are highly, highly popular and highly hard to lock down to work with. But our listeners might want to connect with you. In fact, I'm sure they do. They probably want to work with you and they want to experience more of your amazing offerings. You've already foregrounded that we can go to your website and that there's the archetype quiz there. But where else can they connect with you and engage in more of your amazing work?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, you can find me on Instagram at Money Mindset Hub. Every platform, I'm Money Mindset Hub, but also my podcast is called Money Mindset Hub. It is on all your favorite apps. And my website is moneymindset.hub.com. I do have my signature money program, the best of the best, and what I've learned, and from working with women from startup all the way through to 50 to 100K months. This is such a range of women. So I've put everything that I have learned and helped them with into my signature program, Rich and Resilient, which again is on my website. So you can go and check that out. But yeah, please come and connect with me. I would love to hear what everyone got from this and what really came up when they did some of those exercises. I like to be a real open book. So that's why I thought, I'm just going to ask the questions, because people listening, they might pause, do the work, keep going. But I really just want to always give people practical things to go away and do, because I think the moment you start, it sort of becomes addictive.
It really does. Oh my goodness, it's helped enormously. Carla, I will put all of those links in our show notes as well. And I've already started listening to your podcast and gaining a huge amount from it. You have been so hugely generous and absolutely practical at the same time as knowledgeable. So I just want to, on behalf of my audience and me, Carla, extend a huge thank you for your time and all of your expertise today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it and I've loved meeting you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the incredible future episodes and guests that we have coming up for you. The world needs more kind-hearted women like you with deep pockets. I'll catch you in the next episode.